Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. Chocolate and coconut can create some great flavors in beer, but any brewer will tell you it can be a pain in the butt to pull off. Every new ingredient is a new variable, a new problem, and sometimes it makes a ton of mess. Ira Leibtag and his team at Cholaca have created a whole lineup of products with brewers in mind. And it has our brew team raving about the quality, the flavor, and the ease of use. I'm really excited to sit down with him today. So let's get into it. Ira, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Thrilled to be here.
I guess first off, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name's Ira Leibtag. I'm CEO of a company called Cholaca. Cholaca, we have developed a process to liquefy cacao and emulsify it with water. As we were going through that invention and the utilization of the process, turns out it's really great for making beer. So when we found that out, we really kind of capitalized on that as best we could, getting it out to brewers, trying to figure out how to get it out into the marketplace safely and effectively, and really giving our brewers a better experience than what they've currently been doing when adding flavors. What we found and what we discovered was that there were a number of pains, as you were discussing in your opening there, difficult to use things like chocolate, not consistent from batch to batch, questionable quality on what you're getting out the other side. What I had learned early on in the brewing process was that in order to take a solid and to get flavor out of a solid, you need to use what they were typically using was an extraction process. So by using the chemical reactions that are going on inside of a fermentation tank, you're using those chemical reactions to extract flavor from a solid. What ends up happening is I'll ask a brewer, I said, so what do you think you're pulling out of that product there? And they'll say, you tell me, Ira. I said, I have no idea what you're pulling out, but it may not be exactly what you're looking for. And what Cholaca provided a solution for to ease some of that pain was that instead of having a final product with an extracted flavor of chocolate, we created a process that created an additive flavor. So we developed a fabulous flavor of chocolate, and we basically cleaned that product, so we pasteurized that product, and it allows you to add the product in post-fermentation, and by doing that, you're creating this additive flavor. And it creates ease of use because when you're using nibs or powders or bricks or things like that, the mess becomes somewhat unbearable. In one of our larger breweries that we work with, I remember them telling me that a lot of the brewery staff there, they were like, they didn't want to make the beer anymore because they were turned into glorified janitors. And they didn't like that, I guess. So by adding Cholaca into the process, there's very little cleanup involved. Because we're adding it post-fermentation, the flavor is the flavor. And while doing that, you get more consistent from batch to batch.
I guess we should back up a second and explain to people that when you subject ingredients to heat, it can change the flavor. So the less heat you apply to an ingredient, the more predictable it is for the outcome, specifically for certain products, like, say, chocolate.
Yes, Again, there is, there's trade-offs on everything that you're doing. Because we use such a high quality of cacao, pretty well higher quality than what's available for most people in the marketplace. Whatever we're doing to pasteurize that product is not offsetting the quality because of the nature of the heat.
Who was the very first brewery that you guys kind of worked with for this Cholaca product?
I would say that'd be Oskar Blues, and worked with Tim Matthews there, who we still work with. He's head of brewing operations for all of Canarchy, and it was a little bit of a comical story. If you'd like to hear it.
I'd love to hear it. We're big fans of Oskar Blues. We featured them on the podcast.
Excellent. Well, a number of years ago, I started, just out of the blue, started getting phone calls from different breweries. I live in Boulder, Colorado. We got 100 breweries within 3 blocks of my home. So, they were saying, oh, they heard about our Cholaca and they wanted to use it in beer. And I thought that was quite novel. So I started taking over some samples over to some of these breweries. I really never heard back from any of them. Finally, after a couple months, I think I rang a couple back and I said, so what'd you think? I dropped off all that product. They said, it didn't work. It turned out like this, or it turned out it was no good. And I said, so for curiosity's sake, I'm kind of a novice at this. Explain to me how the process works. And they started saying, well, we took your product there and we put it into our beer and we boiled it up and then it was in our mash and we started fermenting it for 2 weeks. And I just kept looking and going, why would you be doing a thing like that to my chocolate? That's never going to work. They go, you're right, it didn't. And they hung up the phone. Maybe a short time after that, I get a call from Tim Matthews. And he says, Ira, I want to buy a bunch of your Cholaca to put in my beer. And I go, okay, Tim. And I said, how long are you going to ferment my chocolate for? And he goes, why would I want to do a thing like that? And I go, I don't know. And he says, well, basically, because you did it like this, I'm going to add it into the bright tank and let it sit there. And it's like, and that's it. I go, that could work. He goes, I already know it's working, Ira. I'm calling you to buy your product from you. Next thing you know, that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship. And we've been doing this in beers like Death by Coconut for many years now. And it is since taken off. And we're in, oh, goodness, I'm sure we're over 2,500 breweries now in the United States, Canada. We distribute out into places like Korea and into the UK, and we're expanding. So it's we've been very blessed with this.
We often joke that for our brew team, it's 10% brewing, 90% cleaning. And you touched on it before, saying how much easier it is to handle this emulsified product. And when they hit a pain point for cleaning, they're like, don't make my cleaning more difficult. And did you have to workshop that, or was it a happy accident? Have you refined your products to make cleaning easier? Like, how did you do that?
It was just one of those things that Cholaca and beer making came together. It was nothing more than that. It's like we provided a different solution to a problem that is consistent throughout the flavor industry. And it's the way that we've produced it provides little or no waste and a really easy cleanup. Hence that we started asking customers, and customers started asking us, what else have you got? And of course, I'd say, well, what else do you need? Well, they started talking about a problem with coconut. And in fact, coconut is even bigger problem than chocolate, what I found out. Not only does it create a mess, but when you're using flakes or toasted coconut flakes or things like that, it sucks up a bunch of water and you lose a lot of yield in that. So we went out there to figure out how to create a product that is coconut based, that has the same attributes. I built it to have the same attributes as Cholaca. So when a brewer uses it, and let's say he hasn't used liquid coconut before, if he has or she has a experience in using Cholaca, and they went and kind of winged it, they probably do very well because it's got the same dosage rate, it's got the same utilization rate, and it's also been proving to be successful for us. We launched that product last year, and now we're doing different research on some other things that we're putting together as well.
I want to stay on the coconut train for a little bit because I remember the exact specific day that package arrived. I was standing in the tap room, and Zal and Vanessa, our two brewmasters, they run in and they're like, "It's here! It's here! The liquid coconut from Cholaca!" And they were so excited, and they created this 60-liter batch. Just tested it out on our little small pilot test system. For example, to explain to you what 60 liters is, in your imagination, it's 2 small kegs. And that beer sold out in like 2 hours. Usually it takes 6 to 7 hours to kind of sell it. And people just, boom, they lined up. They came. I mean, you're in Colorado. People are hardcore. They get beer. And when that happened, they were like, okay, we got to figure out something even bigger. So they launched a beer called Kanalima, which means 50 in Hawaiian, because one of our owners, he and his wife, celebrated their 50th birthday. And they said they wanted a Maui Brewing inspired beer. And our brewers are like, we've got it. We've got this liquid coconut from Cholaca. We're doing it. And it was a monster hit. Like, it sold so fast. I think you guys should be really proud of that fact. I think you played a big part of it.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, the things that are coming out with Mai Tais and pina colada beers, and now they're doing sours and hazy beers and cloudy beers and summer beers, and now they're throwing them into we're coming into winter beer season. The liquid coconut is really taking a form and a life of its own.
One of the cool things that I noted on your website that my brewers were specifically talking about with me was your product does not introduce bacteria, does not introduce unwanted yeast into the mix, which makes it more predictable. How did you design it to not cause those problems?
Again, it was one of those things that all the pieces came into place to fit beer. We produced Cholaca, and to get it safely into a bottle, so it doesn't have these issues when any kind of consumer is going to be using the product. You have to put it through a sterilization or a kill step or pasteurization process or what have you, depending on how you're filling the product. Turns out that created a pasteurized product for brewers ready to go. And, Cholaca, again, when it came to beer, was one of those things that, all the numbers started tumbling in the right direction. So it was pretty cool.
You teased me. You mentioned that you guys have some new products coming down the pike. What's coming? What are we experimenting with next?
Our big challenge we're playing around with today revolves around peanut butter.
Okay, hit me.
I hear there's challenges in working with peanut butter. Similar challenges, similar problems. As we're developing that product, it creates its own set of special issues to make it work. before we put a product out, a new product out. We're testing it out with various different brewers to see how it all reacts. What we think might react well in a lab, and all of a sudden you take it into a 30-barrel system and it does something else. And then you go and you put it into somebody's 25 or 20-barrel system, or somebody's 50-barrel, or somebody else's 30-barrel. They're all configured a little bit differently. Some people are using filters. Some people are using centrifuges. Some guys have pasteurizers on the back end. Some guys can introduce sugar into things that are fermentable sugars, and they don't care. Some people want to drop it right into a keg. I talk to hundreds and hundreds of brewers. I'm a chocolate guy, right, at the end of the day, but and I don't make beer. But I talk to brewers every day. I think I got a pretty good handle on what y'all are going through, and it amazes me. The best thing I love about this industry, and why I keep coming back to it, really has to do with the people. It's one of the most collaborative, and I'll say the word, and your listeners may not like this, but to me, it's a non-competitive industry. You guys are a bunch of artists. You're all talking to each other. You all want to help to each other, right? And I thrive off of that kind of a thing. So we're out there talking to people. So when I talk to a brewer and he says, Ira had a problem with the coconut, I'll get on the phone with, wait, I know a guy who's got a similar system to you, and we'll do a three-way call. And I spent a lot of time doing that. It's gives me a lot of pleasure that I have the ability to do that and make a bunch of happy brewers, and just watching people talk their talk and do their thing, and creating its artistry. It's fabulous. It's just fabulous.
I love that culture permeates Colorado. I know that Texas craft beer and Sierra Nevada's kind of beer culture really influences our owners. Mark Heisey talks often about how he and what he experienced in Sierra Nevada really shaped the way he wanted to make a brewery work here. The way you talk about the three-way calls about product just perfectly resonates with me, because we've done that talking about yeast, where we're all working with brewers. We're calling up Alberta and we're saying, hey, friends, hey, next door, we're working with this yeast and we're having this issue, and they're troubleshooting it with us. Instead of saying, we're going to grind you into paste, it's like, you're
right.
Our friends. Let's work together. I love that you've tapped into that and felt that energy and experience.
Well, if somebody calls up Cholaca, I answer the phone. Why? Because for the most part, I've got my ear to the ground and my nose to the ground. I know what's going on with my customers, and I want to talk to all of them. It's definitely the best part of my day when brewers are calling me. Love it.
To circle back to your peanut butter piece, we've released a chocolate peanut butter cup beer, and it was a total monster. People were raving about it. And they keep asking us, when are you going to bring it back? And our brewers have said never, because the powder was too much of a pain in the ass. Like, it's too dangerous to manage, because we don't want to introduce a peanut allergy into all of our beers. We want them to have it be easier to clean. So when we actually give you a different beer, we haven't contaminated all our lines. We haven't contaminated all our equipment with peanuts. We don't want to kill people. Like,
It's a problem. The big problem with peanut butter is the allergy issue. It's become prevalent. And so that's one of the big things we're looking at as we're trying to release something. In order for us to go into manufacturing, you have to create enough critical mass of the product to make it so, oh, here's a bucket of something. It's costing you, $2,000 for a bucket. It's like all of a sudden it prices you way out of the market into absurdity. And so we work with all those things before we put something out. We did put out a coffee concentrate that we still have, but it was an interesting product. When we put that out, we found we were competing with every local coffee shop that was out there. And it's like, oh, I get my coffee from this guy down the street. And then they buy a little bit of us because they weren't getting a coffee flavor coming through. So they'd enhance it with our coffee concentrate. So it provides challenges when you're going to put a product out into the market to make sure that you can sell enough of it to keep it going and have a growing concern with what you're doing with your business. So we get it all too well that there are challenges all the way along the line. But right now, cacao and coconut are big sellers for sure.
Did you discontinue the coffee?
Pretty well. It's kind of trickling away. We just don't have enough of that kind of volume to really make it worth everybody's while to be out there. Again, all of a sudden it shoots the price up, and then people can't afford to pay it anymore, which we understand. So, but you gotta keep going, and you gotta keep trying, and we keep innovating with this. This is what we do, and sometimes you win, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way that you'd hope, and so you take your chances, right?
We've had to vote a few beers off the island that really just broke my heart. It was something that I believed in. I was like, oh, this flavor is amazing. And I think I was maybe the only guy in the whole city drinking this beer. And it vanished. And it was like, oh, heartbreaker. So when you say that about the coffee one, I'm like, oh, Saul, Vanessa, come order this guy's coffee product so we can just try it before it's gone.
Yeah, we've worked really hard on that. We've spent a ton of time, spent a ton of money on that. Had a bunch of really, really happy brewers that were keeping us encouraged throughout that whole process. But like you say, sometimes you're the only guy drinking the beer, right?
I don't know how it works in Colorado. I would say here in our market, it takes about 2 years to develop a product, refine it to perfection, and then to get people to wrap their head around it and get really excited. How fast does that happen in Colorado? You said you got hundreds of brewers.
It depends. Cholaca, our original cacao, went really quickly. I would say, yeah, it took about 2 years for us to become kind of solidified in the market. We've been doing that now for certainly 2 years more than that. And really the biggest compliment, if you will, that I think I've ever gotten about beer was that it's been claimed that we have changed the way that brewers are brewing beer when it comes to flavor. And I wear that as a big badge of honor because in a certain sense, we have. Nobody had really been thinking about flavors in this particular fashion. And when I ask why you do it this way, it's like, that's how you make beer. That's how we've always done these kind of things. So to be able to introduce a new methodology that, as we say, we like to think we built a better mousetrap, that's something for us to be proud of, to help in the evolution of the beer industry. It's fantastic. Couldn't be more proud to be part of it.
One of my wife's very dear friends lives in Colorado. As soon as the border opens up, we've got plans to come down and bring the boys. We're going to hit a bunch of breweries up. Where should we go?
Well, you should come over for dinner. You just let me know and we'll cook you a big dinner.
That sounds fantastic. I'll bring you a bunch of Rebellion beer.
That's okay. We're good cooks on this end. We'd love to have you.
I know sometimes you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Is there a beer I should check out next time I'm in town? Something that's really caught your eye?
God, I don't know where to begin or who to plug. I'd be hesitant. I'd just be throwing out names because there's so many good ones, especially around here. You know, I find myself these days a little more partial to the darker beers because that's our bread and butter. I've tasted so many different beers. I'm not even going to throw any out at you because, like I said, I don't want to leave anybody out. But we deal with in Colorado. God, I think there's 200 and 300 breweries in Colorado. I know we service at least 100 breweries in Colorado. I know it.
Do you have to pick someone from out of town so you don't maybe get any daggers flying your way?
I can think of so many. I can't even pick one out for you because they're all good. I haven't had a bad beer. We even have some now that are named after Cholaca. You'll see our label on those beers. Of course, things like Death by Coconut. We got our friends over at Tommy Knockers that have called it Cholaca Cacao Beer. Oh no, sorry, Cholaca Cocoa Porter. I think that's what they're calling it. Fabulous beers. We're working with our friends up in Left Hand right now on a project that I've just been talking with. They're using both cacao and liquid coconut. There's just so many of them.
I know there's a guy who's working on a coconut key lime pie, and it tastes just like you imagine. It's got that bright, refreshing, crisp key lime flavor, and it's got that really nice coconut. One of the beers I'm most proud of that we've done with your Cholaca is our Night Viper, because as you know, Saskatchewan is a massive grower of wheat and barley, so we have this alien spaceship creating a crop circle, and that chocolate character combined with the hot pepper kind of note finish at the end, it just makes you want to take another sip and get that nice sweet chocolate that smooths out, and then the heat stings you and you're like, ooh, really good, I want another sip. And it was just a monster beer, and you guys are a part of it.
Well, thank you. You should send us some pictures on that so we can put it up on our social or something like that. We love doing that.
Absolutely. I'll send you the artwork we had. It was designed by a local comic book artist.
And Matt, of course, that if you're in Canada and you want to get Cholaca, our partners are Canada Malting and Country Malt Group. They're terrific partners. They distribute our products all over the country. If you need any help with that, you can reach out to us or you can reach out to them. And I like to think that they get the product to you when you want it and how you want it. And but they've been wonderful partners for us. We're proud to be part of their family.
That's awesome, man. Ira, thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being on your podcast. Look forward to seeing it out on the internets.
Cheers.
Cheers. God bless.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, The Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links to all things Cholaca, so you can find more about them online. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province, and you can find them at saskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untappd so you don't miss out in the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.